Hey everyone, and welcome to our video on the top 5 rarest N64 games. In this video, we aren't only going to be covering the 5 rarest games that you could purchase, but we will also include even rarer and more obscure games that were finished but never released, and games that were only for promotional purposes. This video was requested from viewers on our top 5 rarest Zelda and top 5 rarest Mario games videos. If you're a fan of videos like this, be sure to comment below and let us know what rare games or obscure games you would like to see us talk about in the future. If we choose a game that you've requested, we will give you a shout out. So be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss when those videos go live.
Number 5.
Super Mario 64 disc version. Super Mario 64 released in Japan on June 23, 1996, and in North America on September 29, 1996, alongside the release of the Nintendo 64. A planned multiplayer sequel, Super Mario 64 2, for the 64 disc drive, entered very early stages of development. However, due to low sales numbers from the disc-based add-on, a lot of games and expansions in development, including Zelda, an expansion to Ocarina of Time, which we have several videos on that can be found in the description below, and Super Mario 64 2, were cancelled. However, some completed games and expansions for the 64 disc drive were released. At the 1996 Nintendo Space World Trade Show, Nintendo wanted to show off and demonstrate the capabilities of the disc drive. Originally, Nintendo wasn't going to show any gameplay, just the attachment itself. However, at the last minute, Nintendo took one of their most popular and well-known N64 games, Super Mario 64, and created a disc version which ran directly off of the disc drive attachment. Nintendo of America's chairman Howard Lincoln is quoted as saying, "Super Mario 64 is running on the 64 DD right now." First, they weren't going to show anything on the 64 DD, but they decided at the last minute to have a game people recognize. Since the event, the disc was thought to be lost, only one of a kind that was kept private by Nintendo. However, around 2014, copies have begun to pop up online. Our great friends at Hard for Games actually own a copy of the game and have a video going into great detail, which is where a lot of this footage we're showing you is coming from. A few key differences with the disc version is that it requires load times in certain areas, or even when going into a painting. Since discs are slower than cartridges, this is one of the most noticeable differences. When you first begin the game, you are met with a title screen that says disc version. You'll also notice the big 3D Mario head is completely gone. The main castle theme is also altered, and it contains a few game-breaking bugs in Tiny Huge Land. Other differences are present, but these are mostly the same differences from the Japanese version and the North American version. It is important to note that this was only a prototype to show off the capabilities of the disc drive, not a complete version of Super Mario 64 ready for release. Although it is likely that if the disc drive had been a success, Nintendo could have possibly released a disc drive-only version of Super Mario 64. This is similar to how The Legend of Zelda was originally a Famicom Disk System game, but switched to a cartridge game. Super Mario 64 could have begun as a cartridge game, but due to the popularity of the disc drive and the sequel of the game being developed for the disc drive, it could have also found its way onto the disc drive. But this is just speculation.
Number 4.
F-Zero X Expansion Kit. F-Zero X was a great racing game for the Nintendo 64. It was the sequel that fans of the original F-Zero on Super Nintendo wanted, a true next-gen successor released on July 14, 1998 in Japan, and in North America on October 26 of the same year. Thanks to the popularity of the game, Nintendo decided to release an expansion for it that made use of their disk drive, releasing on April 21st, 2000, around 2 years after the release of the base game. It would be one of the only expansions that would actually release to the public. If you're a Zelda fan, you probably know about Zelda and the new dungeons, items, villages, locations, and everything else that we missed out on when it was cancelled. Well, F-Zero fans didn't suffer the same terrible fate. They were actually able to go out and purchase their expansion. With the expansion, fans would get 12 new tracks, a car editor, a track editor, and a new enhanced higher quality soundtrack, as well as the older mono soundtrack. However, due to the low sales numbers of the disc drive, and the game cartridge and expansions for the disc drive, all projects were cancelled and production of all of the games that were launched were cut short, which means only limited numbers of the disk drive games or expansions were actually made, which makes F-Zero X expansion kit a lot more rare than the typical Nintendo 64 game. Typically, you could find it on eBay for around $200, with pristine versions reaching up to $1,000.
Number 3.
I'm gonna be honest here, I have no idea how to pronounce this. So, Kyojin no Doshin Kaiho Sensen Chibiko Chiko Daishug. Yeah, that's a hard name to say, and I'm sure fans of the game don't want to hear us butcher it even more. So from here on, we will refer to it as the Doshin expansion. The Doshin expansion is an add-on for the original Doshin the Giant game. Some of you know it from its GameCube version, which released in Japan on March 14th, 2002, and in Europe in September 2002. There was no North American release for Doshin, which adds to the rarity of this game. However, the original release for the game was on December 1st, 1999 in Japan only, on the Nintendo 64 disk drive. The Doshin expansion released about 6 months later on May 17th, 2000, and required the original game to be played. The original game for the Nintendo 64 disk drive, like other games on the disk drive, already had lower than normal copies produced, so the expansion for the game had even fewer. What is Doshin, you ask? I'm sure the gameplay has you asking many questions. It's basically what is referred to as a god simulator. You play as Doshin, the yellow giant, and you're basically free to do whatever you want in the world that the game allows. You can choose to help the inhabitants of the world, or make life harder for them. As odd as it might seem, the expansion has Doshin imprisoned and you play as a child. The child is woken out of bed, like Link in many Zelda games, and pulled into his dreams. In the dream world, the child can pee 2D hearts on people. Yes, even Doshin. The main purpose of the expansion is just to watch 17 short black and white films titled More Than Giant. It has you constantly switching back and forth between the expansion disc and the original game to verify that certain requirements in the game were met. IGN's Pierre Schneider, the man who co-created the website and is the general manager, who, quick plug here, I met and chatted with at E3, originally reviewed the expansion, giving it a 2.5 out of 10, and ending his review with the word painful. In the review he says, "Looks and plays like it was programmed in 2 weeks, controls are bad, and this add-on disc is a glorified movie player. The only compliment he gave the game, if you can call it that, is the Param team definitely has a sense of humor. Both Doshin games will make you laugh. Basically, they're so absurd."
Number 2.
ClayFighter 63 1/3, the Sculptors Cut. This is a popular game found on a lot of rare Nintendo 64 game lists, and for a reason. ClayFighter Sculptors Cut was never officially sold in stores. It was only available to rent from Blockbuster stores, releasing on May 15th, 1998. However, once the new generation of GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox games started becoming more popular, the video rental stores did begin either selling or just throwing out their old stock of last-gen games. It is believed that each store was given an average of 2 games. With around 9,000 stores, it is estimated that around 18,000 copies were produced, which may sound like a lot, but its rarity has caused prices to sell for around $250 to $300 in 2016. With a complete copy, including the manual and box, reaching up to $3,000. So what is ClayFighter 63 1/3? Well, it became a cult classic among fighting game fans based off the popularity of other fighting games such as Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. ClayFighter even included the Claytality, a parody on Fatality from the Mortal Kombat series. The title 63 1/3 is also a parody of how a lot of Nintendo 64 games use 64 in the title, With this being the third in the series, instead of calling it ClayFighter 3, it was titled 63 and a Third. Sculptor's Cut is an expanded version of the original game, which released the previous year on October 21st, 1997. It added in more content, which seems to be a bit odd personally. If someone rented this game from Blockbuster and wanted to actually purchase it, when they went to a store to purchase the retail version, they would be buying a lesser version that would feel incomplete. The ClayFighter wiki has great bullet points on the differences between the two versions. Killer Instinct-based combo system was removed, including the removal of insane combos and combo breakers. If you're a fighting game fan, you know how important combos and combo breakers are, so that alone is a huge difference for those who develop certain techniques. The game has new menus, 4 new characters, a new intro sequence. Much of the special moves from characters were removed. Blob Stage changed from Grotto Gulch to the Refuse Room. New voice clips were added for some characters. Some clatalities were removed, with others having new commands. It has part of a new story mode added. Instead of fighting Dr. Kiln at the end, each character fights their rival. Earthworm Jim is now an unlockable character, while Dr. Kiln is a starter character. Ichabod Clay's Super was updated. 3D scrolling was removed to make breakthroughs easier. This enhanced version became the very last game in the ClayFighter series to release. Oddly enough, with this being an enhanced version, it actually has a character who was cut from the game. Only available in the vanilla retail version. Hobocopy, a parody of the main protagonist from the RoboCop series, was removed. Fans debate on whether it was due to a data cap issue on the cartridge, or possibly due to controversial reasons.
Just as with every top 5 games videos we make, before we reach our final game, we have an honorable mention, a bonus 6th game. So here is a friendly reminder to please subscribe and give this video a like if you want to see more. Most people know Animal Crossing for its GameCube release in Japan on December 14th, 2001, and in North America almost a year later on September 15th, 2002. However, it originally released on April 14th, 2001, but only in Japan. No, it wasn't a 64 disk drive game, but it did begin as one. It would use the internal clock for the in-game time system. The clock was moved to inside the cartridge, which makes it unique when compared to most 64 games. While it isn't an extremely rare game, its release late in the Nintendo 64's life, and its GameCube port releasing in the same year, caused it to sometimes be forgotten, especially since the GameCube version contained enhanced features, improved resolution, and extra content. It isn't quite rare enough to make an official list of rare games, but it is special enough that it deserves an honorable mention.
Number 1.
Yoshi International. Yoshi's Story International release is typically what most collectors look at as a crown jewel for the Nintendo 64 games. Yoshi's Story originally released in Japan on December 21st, 1997, with the American release coming March 10th, 1998, which included a few differences as well as graphical updates. The international release cartridge's release date is debated and left unknown. It was not for retail sale and was only made for Nintendo 64 demo kiosks. The mysterious part about the game is that it only contains Japanese text, but is only playable on North American consoles. This also brings some confusion on why it's named as an international version, with it only having one language, and only being played in one region, which isn't even the region of the language of the game. It's unknown how many copies exist. Another odd fact about the game is that it contains no game code. At the time, it was thought to be one of the only Japanese games to be rated by the North American ESRB. At the time of making this video, the cartridge alone can be found on eBay for up to $2,000.
Hey everyone, it's me again, Elia Rose. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video. And you know what? If you're a fan of videos like this, you should totally subscribe and give this video a like and comment below to let us know what type of videos you would like to see us create in the future. And if you would really like to support all of us here at the GameOverJesse channel, please consider purchasing a GameOverJesse t-shirt or becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/GameOverJesse, where you can receive many rewards, such as getting shoutouts, having any topic or theory that you select discussed on the podcast or made into its own video, having your question answered, joining on as a guest on the podcast, and playing with us during our Twitch live streams at twitch.tv/GameOverJesse, and much, much more.